Back home, the deluge of international films and TV shows on streaming services like Netflix has the entertainment industry fearing for the future. They want Australian stories to remain on Australian screens. Gillian Armstrong is one of Australia's best-known feature film and documentary makers whose directing credits include My Brilliant Career, Oscar and Lucinda and Little Women. And Marta Dusseldorp is the star of the popular TV dramas Janet King and A Place to Call Home. She's also an award-winning theatre actor. They've both been at the launch of the Make It Australian campaign in Sydney tonight, and they join me in the studio. Welcome to you both.
Hello.
Hi.
Tell us, Gillian, why this campaign and why now?
There's been a change. There's been technical innovation. It's called streaming services. So now fewer and fewer people are watching free-to-air TV. Sorry, I hope there's a lot of people out there tonight. And we're saying it's starting to run away. And we need to actually put in some protection. The Australian film and television industry has really done an incredible job. I mean, we're a small country, but we're so over talented. And I have to say that people forget it's actually incredibly precarious. We really only got here because years ago, in the 60s, the Make Australian TV, it was Henry Crawford who did Cop Shop and Division 4. The actors and the crew, they marched and said to Australians, do you want Australian stories on TV? When I was growing up in the 60s, I saw like Lassie and Rin Tin Tin and Mickey Mouse. I didn't realise until later that the actual amount of Australian programs on our TV when I was a kid was a pathetic 1%. And it only changed with two things. One, with a control saying, if you're going to have a holder commercial license, you have to have there's a quota and you have to have a certain number of programs. And the other one was the lobbying of the Gorton government to say, we want an Australian film industry. What happened before, we had an amazing industry here in the 1930s. Our cinemas were full, we had amazing filmmakers, we had the first women who were directing, the McDonough sisters. And basically, there was change, a technological change. It was called sound. At that time, the US majors came in. So if you're thinking, bells are ringing, they came in. Yep, they put sound in all the cinemas and they bought them and they owned them. And the distribution narrowed. The Australian film industry completely died. People like Mia Farrow's father, John Farrow, was an Australian director, ended up in Hollywood. The wonderful McDonough sisters, the lead one who's the writer, wrote for the North Shore Times, Raymond Longford, ended up selling tickets at the Quay. Now, I often catch the ferry, but the ticket selling job is really not something I think I'm going to fall back on because they don't really sell them anymore. Now we've all got the Opal. But it's real. It's this, we need protection. We need protection of our talent, but also our stories are our culture. We've got this weird Aussie humour. We say these odd things. Only we know the sound of cicadas can be amazing. It can be romantic. There are special things. Nicole Kidman's first job ever was in a rock clip I directed, which was a hit on Countdown. I hope they run it in the new ABC thing. So I wouldn't have been here without government controls and government funding, and neither would Nicole.
Marta, do you feel it as an actor in the industry? Is there something government could be doing to assist this kind of runaway train? What is it that's wrong with the policy settings in this country that's stopping Australian films being made in Australia?
Well, right now it's being proposed that they get rid of these quotas. If that happens, we never get them back.
The one they're proposing is the quota for children's TV.
It's not just, but children's is a real problem because certainly for my kids, I need them to grow up hearing their own voice, hearing their own stories, understanding themselves, identifying to be Australian. To me, that leads to better mental health nationwide. The stories that I'm a part of travel around the world. A Place to Call Home and Janet King all have sales overseas. And when I've just been in London, and they love our stories. They love them for being Australian. If they start taking away the quotas, I can understand sometimes why maybe then we wouldn't make it, because we're not being told we have to. So the government has to just keep it in place.
But is there something about making films in Australia that is difficult?
Yes, lack of money,
lack of funding.
It's always been. But our crews and casts are extraordinary. So yes, Leanne Moriarty was not going to sell that book to an Australian because she would have got like $2 for it. So
well, I was going to ask you about that. Big Little Lies that's had all this success overnight in America.
Leanne,
it's an Australian story, but it was made in America.
Yeah.
And this was a book that was based on an Australian school, Australian
and
parents.
And we celebrate that because what it does is it puts Nicole up there in front of the world, it puts an Australian writer up there in front of the world, and a producer. And
they made it in America.
And that reflects well on us as a nation. And then we come up with these Australian stories. They buy them overseas. They are selling them. It's happening. And so I think...
Why don't we have the money here?
Well, I think it's partly because people have made a lot with very little for quite a long time. So we make it work, and I think that that's reaching breaking point. Certainly I heard tonight...
I think that is the point,
Everyone is starting to go, there's only so much we can do. We're now at such a tight budget, such tight schedules. I mean, Janet King, for instance, we make it with very little, but we have this amazing crew, incredible cast, cinematographers, everyone coming in and just working... So what we have to do now is start to say we actually need more to match world-class drama, which we are, but we need the money. We need it to keep coming and we need more of it.
But it can come in all different forms. It can be incentives.
Yes.
And we have to hit all the new media and say, I mean, the European Union voted a number of months ago, they're putting a 30% local content control on their Netflix and Amazon, and they've found a way to get some money that goes back into local content.
So sorry, that means if Netflix is streaming into a European Union country, that Netflix needs to broadcast 30% of that country's content.
Yes, they do.
Right.
They do.
And that creates jobs.
It's like a no-brainer.
It's as simple as that, and it's already done. This is the thing; it's already done.
But if you're raising the money for something, you have to tell the investors it can be shown. So you need outlets. So yes, once upon a time it was the cinemas, and then it was television, free to air, and now you can actually, where programs are being made by HBO and so on. I mean, there are fantastic Australians who are... I mean, there was at ABC are now going to do a co-production with Netflix. Glitch also got Netflix money. So that's all true. And the other thing we mustn't forget is in the last 10 years, the money for Screen Australia and for ABC and SBS, drama and documentaries, has been pulled back and back and back.
So are you looking for a certain quota? Are you looking for the government to slap a quota on Netflix, iTunes, Facebook, those sorts of overseas?
Follow the world.
Follow the world, yeah.
They're already doing it.
It's a new world.
What's the appropriate quota?
30% sounds like a good...
Yeah, 30%.
So some people watching would say, well, that's a form of protectionism. You want the local industry protected. Why should the film and television industry be protected in a way, say, the car industry never was? We let that go. We put the white flag up and said we can't compete with the rest of the world. Why should the TV and film industry in Australia be protected in a way the car industry wasn't?
Because we're more than just a product. We are, I mean, yes, we're an industry and a huge industry that's highly skilled as well, but it's about our culture and our identity and our own stories. Do we want our kids only finding out about the senior prom and maple syrup on pancakes? I mean, we have a unique, all these things that make us special as Australians, our humour, and our identity.
Our stories are now much more diverse than they've ever been. So we're reflecting Australian society.
It's about a society, and it's about and the good stories and the best of the documentaries make us think about our lives as people and who we are. It's so important.
And every day I'm stopped on the street, every day, at least 10 times. And I'm not exaggerating, where people say thank you. And when's it coming back on? And what's next? And for you, and this is my daughter, and this is my son, and this is my mother, and she loves you, and can we have a photo? And
Marta, it feels like you're one of the exceptions, a celebrated Australian actor who has made a conscious and deliberate decision to stay in this country. Have you felt the pull to go and work overseas because conditions are perhaps better?
well, invariably, you need to widen your net and your collaborations. But I've been so happy here, being here, telling Australian stories. It's always kept me contently.
And she's been very humble. She's having lots of hot offers now. Place Called Home has been selling all over the world. That's what we want to say. We're not here begging for money.
No.
We're here to say, actually, we've done an amazing job.
It's already working.
But the ground is changing and we need protection. There was no industry at all until we're protected. We're a small country, you know.
Because as you alluded to earlier, there was a similar campaign in the 70s, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Did that fail?
No.
That worked.
It's just that the industry has changed.
Yes, because everyone's finding other outlets, new sources.
And I think we're talking now, John Edwards spoke earlier at the rally, and he made the point that we never know what's going to happen next. But it can change really fast. And good things can come from this because we start a conversation. So actually, Gillian and I are here to rally people, not just to raise our fists. We'd love Australia to write to the government.
If there are Australian stories that resonated with you, if you know all the dialogue of Muriel's wedding, if you know all the songs from Starstruck, if you became a writer because you saw My Brilliant Career or decided to have your hair red, write now to your members of Parliament, write to the Arts Minister and say, I want to keep seeing Australian stories.
Yes.
On my screen. I want The Castle, and I want A Place Called Home, or Janet King, or Please Like Me.
Is this coincidental with the government's media reform package, or is it tied to that?
I think it's been partly that the free-to-air, the commercial broadcasters have been saying about wanting to drop the quota for children's television, Australian children's television, which worries us that it's the tip of the iceberg.
Is that because it's expensive to make?
It really doesn't have to be expensive to make.
Well, so why would they want to drop that
Well,
quota?
they're saying everything is expensive to make. I mean, truly, when I was growing up in the 60s, sitting at home in Vermont, in Victoria, we saw the worst of American television. It was dumped on Australia. And that's what we're saying. You've got to have those controls.
Play School and Humphrey.
No, they came in later. They came in. I had Mr. Squiggle.
But I don't
and
know
Magic
why they're
Circle Club. And I know ABC, that was the 1% of Australian content was on the ABC. And actually, I still think the ABC could have a bit of a quota, definitely have a bit of a quota, just to protect Australian content and production.
Why are they identifying children? I don't know. And I think that that's really worrying because actually it's our children who are the future voices of this country.
So the commercial broadcasters at the moment do still have a quota for children's television?
Yes, but they're saying they want to drop them as one of their things.
So really we have to fight for the kids. I mean, it's important.
And we have to fight for the next generation of talent. The next Nicole, the next Marta, the next Jill Armstrong or Jane Campion. Or there's boys sometimes who direct. Some of those boys who can all do it on their own. Because
I'm sure there are some.
We have now hundreds of film schools, media schools, drama schools. And you know what? A lot of them are just going straight to Hollywood because it's so hard to get something up here.
Gillian Armstrong, Marta Dusseldorp, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having us.